I think the biggest thing I want companies to understand, and especially if in the early stage, is you are building an asset. If you're not building an asset, your business owns you, and you're not any freer than if you work for somebody else. You might as well work for somebody else than building that, because an asset will work for you long term.
Let's go.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Social Exchange Project. This is your host, Shane-Laura Waldinger, and today I am so excited because not only do I have my life coach, Beth Crowell, back here. She's been a previous guest on 1.5-ish episodes.
Yeah, something like that.
Right. But it's just nice because we haven't been in contact really in person because of COVID, and this is the first time, and we had to have a moment to hug, and it was amazing. But not only do I have Beth Crowell here, but I have an amazing person who I just met a few weeks ago. He is an award-winning branding expert and speaker who has helped nonprofits, solo entrepreneurs, and healthcare companies with millions of revenue through strategic branding and marketing. I knew of him because he actually, through marketing, he had a really cool ad that was going on Facebook. Justin Vajko, thank you so much for being here.
You bet.
Welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
So before we get started on some of the things that's been happening in your world, I want to talk a little bit about Beth, because I love Beth, and you've been also really busy the last few months. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to?
Sure. So essentially, right when the Safer at Home order got issued, middle of March, I found out that I was selected to be a part of the Venture Home cohort, which is a group that's in connection with WISIS and with Collab to help 6 entrepreneurs jumpstart their businesses, essentially. So I've been working through that ever since March, almost kind of taking this cultivative, little bit of a hibernative approach to my business, but working through that and really understanding more about what the Hippie Banker is, what the messaging is, what I feel like with now over a year under my belt of the work that I've been doing, what it really, really looks like. So working on that, and a couple fun projects that I'm working on. I'm working on a small book that will talk about how to create a spiritual plan for your business. So it in many ways mirrors how a traditional business plan is structured with all the sections, but takes a spiritual approach to it. So that you're building a business, but you're also building a really strong spiritual base from which your business can grow and thrive. And the other thing I'm working on, I've been taking solo retreats for about 7 years now, about one every summer. And I've had so many really life-changing experiences as a result of that. A lot of things have become very crystal clear from taking that about 48 hours just to be quiet and listen and do a lot of introspection and hiking and exploring. But nonetheless, people seem to be inquisitive about that. And, well, what do you do for 48 hours? You're by yourself. There's no TV. You try to stay away from your phone. So what I'm doing is I'm helping people plan their own solo retreats, but also to take a little bit of that seclusion away. I'm considering a solo but together retreat. So I'd be putting together a group of, say, 15 people that are solo retreating at the same time, perhaps around some kind of shared purpose for their solo retreat, but then bring in maybe an expert via Zoom who would address a specific topic. And then I could come in at some point during the retreat to do a group coaching session, essentially, to talk about what people's struggles are, what their challenges are being faced, not only in whatever it is they're trying to tackle, but for some people, 48 hours by yourself can be
It's a little scary to be alone with your thoughts, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm signed up for that
because I'm excited about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for the update. That's awesome. And we'll definitely be linking everything as time goes on, and as you have more of these developments and you know more about what's going to be happening, we'll definitely be promoting that, because I am not only do I receive the services from you and know how impactful they can be, but I myself have been really interested in a solo solo kind of venture, you would say. So yeah, I'm signed up.
Perfect.
So everybody be on board for that.
Thanks, Shang.
And then I have you here, Beth, because you and Justin actually know each other.
Yes.
You guys are BFFs, I think.
Yeah.
How do you guys know each other?
So
Go for it, Justin.
Yeah.
Beth, I connected with Beth on LinkedIn. Was it last 2018?
It was
Or 2019.
2019. It was
Last fall. So I was in the process of, to make a long story short, connecting with as many people as possible in the infancy of my new full-time business as a branding and marketing expert. And Beth looked like a mover and shaker on LinkedIn. You can always tell who those people are. I said, hey, Beth, let's to meet. And we're talking about, how you get to make sure. We met for coffee at where was that?
Shift.
At Shift.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, how this, I do basically what I love doing is helping people kind of figure out the value on the inside of their business that most people will never see and then express it on the outside. And
So you guys both work at SBDC then together, right? Or
Well, we're in the same office.
you're in the same
suite
office.
together.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Couple blocks that way. Now we are. We weren't, at the time. We were just working at home or whatever at the time before we worked in the same space. So
Gotcha.
and that's how we met, and then branded Beth's business.
Yes, I love your website.
Yeah.
I remember that transition because it was current coaching.
Yeah. Yep. I had the website for coaching, and then this idea of the Hippie Banker came
Just
to
very
fruition.
fitting
And,
of
yeah.
So back to you, Justin. What I was most fascinated about, because the first thing that I saw was the advertisement that you had about this giveaway that I did not win, but that's okay. That's okay.
We got an offer coming out soon. I was working on it on Friday, so watch your email.
Okay,
We got some
cool.
coming
Because
out.
I signed up the nonprofit, my employer that I work for, and then also my the podcast as well. But what I'm most interested about, and I watched your 1 Million Cups, and I think a lot of things made sense for me in watching that. But tell me, I guess, a little bit about your journey with Dialog Design, and what is that essentially?
Sure. So Dialog Design in a nutshell is a branding and marketing agency, and those are big words. So basically what I break that down into is branding and marketing. Branding is a kind of a pulling factor, so it makes you very attractive to people visually, verbally. People kind of get who you are with branding, good branding. And marketing is the act of pushing, not pushy, but pushing your message out to the right people so they can actually see you.
Sure.
And so I do branding and marketing for entrepreneurs. And so I didn't come to that conclusion right away. It's been a process, and I've been doing this for, you could argue, a form of this since middle school. I don't want to get, that's my long story. I don't want to go there. That's a big story.
Let's start at middle school.
Let's start at middle school. When I was born, I was a young man. No. So Dialog is a branding and marketing agency for entrepreneurs. And so what that practically means is we get to know our clients, and then we get to build for them a custom visual look, and maybe put a message together for them that really hits home with the right audiences, so they're not just kind of flinging around whatever they can for advertising and whatever. Kind of hone in on what makes them unique, and then kind of express that to the world so they start attracting the right people and making sure they're getting in front of the right people.
Gotcha.
Branding and marketing.
Yeah, because that's what I think I need. So, so I think because I feel like I'm not as equipped to talk too much about the business aspect of things.
Sure.
Business is super new to me. Like,
Sure.
literally in the last 8 months, I've been more interested in the business aspect of things. I signed up for the entrepreneurial program through the UW and through SBDC. But I still don't have a single clue what marketing and branding is, to be honest. People use it interchangeably all the time.
They do.
Are they different? Are they the same?
They are technically different.
Okay.
They're often overlapping, and that's what makes it so confusing.
Yeah.
Again, one of the great ways to talk about branding versus marketing is branding is the act of creating, of making sure your insides match your outsides, so to speak. So if you are, for example, I like to use the example of a person. If you are a person and you have a heart and you have a mind, you have preferences and you have desires and you have a vision and you have things you don't like, things you do like, people you like to be around, that is your personality as a person. That's who you're made up of. But if you don't, dress the way you want to be and go hang out with the people you should be, you're going to kind of not be at your best, so to speak. You can hang out with the wrong people. You can dress shabbily, so people interpret you to be the wrong person that you actually are. People misinterpret who you are. We all deal with that on a regular daily basis, and we're trying to make sure our insides match our outsides. And there's a lot of fear built into that, and there's a lot of I hope I look like this when actually you should be looking like this. There's all that, personality is such a deep thing. And I like talking about that when it comes to brands, because brands are very much the same way. So branding is basically authentic brands is making sure the inside matches the outside visually, and making sure your message matches your personality, making sure, for example, here's a practical example, you're not using a very professional language. When you're a down-to-earth person, you should use down-to-earth language. So when I built, for example, Beth's website, I used very down-to-earth language. I didn't go and use I am, I used I'm, and things like that. So there's very practical things you can do to make sure your brand matches your personality, and that becomes attractive to the right people who also want to hang out with that kind of personality. So for example, it wouldn't make sense for Walmart to go around and start saying, I'm going to go be the premium option in the marketplace. That's not authentic to who they are. Their authentic place is we have everything for everyone and we make it as easy as possible. Target, however, can say we're going to be the more premium option because that's what they stand for in terms of their...
So it comes to like customer base. Like who is it that you're trying to attract?
Exactly. And that's ultimately what it's all about, is what your customers want as a business. Now, we're not talking personalities, because you can't build your personality. Well, you can. It's just really unhealthy. Build your personality around what people want.
You can robotically build your personality.
Right. So
I want this piece and this piece and this piece.
I want to be funny, but also,
super witty too.
yeah. But it has to be authentic. And that's what really builds a good brand, is that you know what you stand for and you build around that. And you make sure everything matches that as much as possible.
So, go ahead.
One of the things that when I was working with Justin that I appreciated is when I was trying to figure out exactly what the Hippie Banker was, we had really good conversations around that. So, and he asked really good questions and took me through the business model canvas, which was really valuable to help me understand.
You actually introduced me to that, by the way.
Business model canvas.
I want to let you know that.
Yeah. It's a great tool. And we worked through that a lot of figuring out what is it very deeply that I'm offering. So is that part of just more of your process too?
Yeah, it is. In fact, as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, I got to bring that back. If you watch the 1 Million Cups video, and folks who don't know 1 Million Cups, it's this group nationally that you dig into entrepreneurs' journeys and understand mostly startups and what are you building and things like that. And I was explaining my process, and one of the things I've been doing over the last 2 years since doing Dialog full time is figuring out what my process is. I have a lot of tools, right? As a consultant, I have a lot of tools I can pull from, and I tend to be, as a visionary, like, I'm going to use this one this time, and no, I got to keep the same one. So I'm so glad we went through that, because there's even a couple clients recently, I'm like, dang, I should have done that tool. It would have brought a lot of clarity, and we wouldn't be in the place we are today.
But it's pretty much trial and error, though, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to try and see. So one of the things, too, that I came up, so when I was going through the business course that I was going through, again, I'm not a business person at all. I don't consider myself to be proficient in any of the verbiage that you guys use. But one of the things that did come up a couple months ago that I ran into was an author, I think Alan Dibb is what his name is. And I want to read this to you, and I just want to see what you guys think of this, okay? Because this, again, is new to me. So if a circus, this is what he says in his book. It's called, I think, one-page...
marketing plan.
Okay. So this is what he says, and maybe this is new to you. But he says, if the circus is coming to town and you paint a sign saying circus coming to town, that's advertisement. If you put the sign on the back of an elephant and walk it into town, that's promotion. If the elephant walks through the mayor's flower bed and the local news writes a story about it, that's publicity. And if you get the mayor to laugh about it, that's public relations. And if the town citizens go to the circus and you show them the mini entertainment booths and, obviously they end up spending money, that's sales. And then if you had planned all of this all along, that's marketing. Is that accurate?
This is very accurate. I've heard that one. There's a guy called...
I like that.
I follow called Chris Do. He's a world famous branding guy. And similar background as me. He comes from a visual branding background, and now he teaches other folks how to do branding and marketing. So he brings in experts, and I love that example that he shared.
Love that.
Isn't that is very helpful?
You go through the journey, like, because for somebody like me who needs things to be simplified like that, you go through the journey and you can pick apart. Okay, that makes sense. That is publicity. That's advertisement. That's marketing. Yeah. So branding, what is that essentially? Because you used to do images or graphic design.
Graphic design.
What is branding? Like, if I was to brand, what would that look like?
So if you were to rebrand, and it means different things for different people. Again, there actually literally are different definitions for branding. My definition of branding is making sure the insides match the outside so that your reputation grows for who you actually are as a business. It's kind of
there's a uniqueness level to it.
There's a uniqueness, absolutely. Okay. Yep. So the traditional sense of branding is making sure visually you look unique so that people identify you in the marketplace. So what that looks like is a logo that is unique, colors are unique. Maybe you have some similarities to your competitors, so you look like you're in the same space. A lot of realtors, for example, have houses in their logos. I'd say, screw that. Don't put a house in your logo. But there's common things we see, to make sure people identify you. And that kind of model is going away with the advent of social media and video and things like that. The visual identity is less important as it used to be back in the day. The visual identity is the logo and the look, so to speak.
Gotcha.
For certain contexts, it's extremely important. I would say it's important for all. But so that's the visuals is usually the traditional understanding of branding. But branding now is more of the impression setting. So some people take the definition of impression setting as, and you think about it, it makes sense, as wide as how do you answer the phone when somebody calls customer service?
Gotcha.
Chase Bank, for example, if they've got a long wait line, they're impression setting. And somebody who's a branding consultant might say, that is poor branding. Because if you stand Chase if you stand for good customer service, because that's your unique value proposition, that's what you want to be known for. This does not match that. Therefore, you're not an authentic brand. You need to pick something else.
Gotcha.
And so there are other brands, for example.
So there's a level of consistency that you need to
Absolutely.
have. Okay.
Based around what you're going to stand for. Discover Bank stands for customer service. We know that through their ads and the experience. I'm a Discover Bank customer, Discover Card, and they make it super easy to talk to somebody, whereas these other banks don't. And they know that.
This is not a paid advertisement.
This is not a paid advertisement. I'm just trying to give practical examples.
I like that, yeah.
So Chase is more of a, I don't know what their value proposition, but Discover would be like, we're all about customer service. And they can base their business on that. So individually as entrepreneurs, we can do the same thing. Whether we own a little shop or we own an online business, there are unique things we can stand for. It's not, earth-shattering, but it makes us like, oh, okay, I want to do business with that person because they make it really easy. And again, it's all about what the customer
It's what
wants.
sets you apart then from maybe a competitor.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
In a practical way. I think a lot of people have that wrong is they think, well, I'm just going to brand, I'm going to look unique. But branding doesn't do anything for you if all you're doing is trying to slap a new color on a logo and you haven't changed anything. Your business look is just like everyone else's business. There are so many businesses like that. And that's why businesses often suffer and they stay small. It's because they haven't figured out what is their secret sauce. And sometimes they don't care. We talk, when you and I talked before this podcast about what I do, there's a 5V framework I use. And
I'm actually really interested in that.
Sure.
So tell me more about that because I like the 5V aspect of things. So all of them start with V. Okay, so go ahead and tell me more about that.
So what that means is a lot of businesses, most businesses I would say have 4 Vs and maybe just 1 or 2. And the one you need, if you do none of the V's, you need one, that is value. So you can't be in business if what you're giving doesn't have value. And value is simply what you give somebody, whether it's a haircut or a pocket watch or a business solution, the value of that has to exceed the price somebody pays. If it doesn't exceed the price somebody pays, no one's going to buy it. So that's the value. You got to make sure that's right. So if you have
you want to over deliver to some extent.
You want to over deliver. Yeah. So whether it's a premium product or a cheap product, you got to make sure it matches what the customer wants from it. If somebody buys a cheap product, they know it's a cheap product, but they bought it. It was cheap, so they're going to buy it.
Well, and being really clear about what the value is. It doesn't. It's not specifically tied to some kind of a dollar amount because something that could be, you could think of it as relatively low value if you're buying something that. A purse, for example,
right.
If you buy a super expensive purse, that the value is not just the materials that went into that. It's right. How the value is how that's going to make that person feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so a lot of people, so it's all tied together, this stuff. So the 5 E's, I forgot to mention all what they all are. So I talk about with every business owner is vision, value, verbals, visuals, and visibility. And so any business can have value, visuals. They got to have visuals. You got to have some logo, some way that people recognize you, whether it's a color. So value, okay, what are we doing for people? If we're an HVAC professional, what is the value? Well, we're going to fix their home and they're going to pay us so they don't have to do it themselves so they have nice, cool air in their home. Like that's a super basic value proposition. A bazillion other people can do that, but they found us first and they like us, so that's a value proposition. Visuals, okay, we got this logo because people need to have an identity. It's like you got to get dressed in the morning. Businesses need to have that. Verbals, this is our message. And then how are we going to connect with people in the right way? There's really more ways than one to have a message. There's, in fact, most ways to deliver a message to your audiences are poor. People just don't realize just saying something a certain way isn't really going to connect.
So really quick, can you give me an example of verbal?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So a verbal would be, for example, a tagline, or maybe how you introduce yourself at a networking conference. My name's Justin Vajko. I help businesses get leads now and build brand for long-term growth. that, oh, interesting, getting leads now. I need leads now, but I also want long-term growth. So how do you introduce yourself to the marketplace? How do you keep telling people about your
simplified but
company?
effective.
Yep, absolutely. Making sure it's clear. A lot of people just aren't clear. They try to be too fancy with their marketing, with their message. So value, verbals, visuals, and visibility. Visibility is the big one for small businesses. How do you get in front of more people? Oftentimes people really don't have a branding problem is what they do. But if they're a small business and they want to grow to the next step, the biggest thing I'm finding is they need visibility. And that's how you found my ad online. That's how we connected. They just need to be seen, and then they can figure some of these other things out once they have cash flow.
So is the visibility then, in a sense, marketing?
Visibility is a big, exactly. It's advertising, marketing, a bunch of things like that. And so that's the framework I give. And that, if you want to stay in business, and you have to have those four right. There's a way to do a logo bad. There's a way to do a logo poorly, great. There's a way to deliver a message poorly. There's a way to deliver a message well. We make sure all that stuff's squared away for our clients. But then vision is the one I really get excited about. And that's what we were just talking about.
And that's what you are. I feel like I've heard that you say that I'm more of a visionary. Okay, so explain that.
So vision is the idea that, more than just build a business where we stay small. We referenced that earlier. Just stay small, little businesses everywhere. People are just happy doing the 9 to 5 for themselves rather than for someone else. That's fine. I love working with businesses that have a vision, businesses that want to affect change in the world through their business, or they have a big goal. If nothing else, I want to, I maybe don't want to change lives, but I want to reach as many people as possible because I want to grow this business. I want to make this happen. And so that's a vision. And so that's where real brands can really have, and branding can really have an effect. So it's making sure that you stand for something. And when I talk about vision, I talk about making sure your values are right, what you stand for, your flag in the ground is set up, does it match actually who you are? And there's a whole process to that. And then where do you want to go? What is your dream? 3 years and 10 years? Do you want to sell this business? Do you want to have 1 million customers? Do you want 1 million in sales? All these big dreaming questions. I love that stuff because I'm a visionary at heart. And so the 5 V's is that it's vision, value, verbals, visuals, and visibility. And when a business does all those things well, they're on their way to very, very good brand building. It's not necessarily guarantee success because there's a lot of things in business that need to happen. Like, they need to make sure there's a customer base and things like that. People want what they have to offer. That's all taken care of when we do these workshops with clients, making sure, okay, you got this great big vision. Do people want this? You can't go build a business without market.
It's like the Vajko's V's. I feel like that's what you need to do.
Right.
It might be. So that's the 5 V's that we build in kind of all of our workshops, and it's still in flux. It used to be the 3 V's, used to be the 4 V's. As I help businesses over the last 2 years doing this full time, I realized, all right, this business has this kind of cool thing going on. Oh, let's identify that part. Okay, that's a vision thing. Okay, we got to make sure that plays through all their other stuff. Because if you ignore the vision, plenty of business owners, and this is where I love, is they got the 4 V's kind of figured out, but their vision is really what I love. Like they got a hidden vision. Like, oh, I really want to do this thing. Or I'm doing this, like we're doing this thing over here, and literally nobody knows about it. And it's like, people should know about this. I'm helping a client right now. Her name is Amy, and she has a soap company. And she does a bunch of cool things. She's out in Michigan, and she gives back 10% of all her profits, literally in soap products and things like that. These fantastic, I use her products now, and these fantastic things. She gives it back to homeless shelters in her area. Nobody knows about this. And it's a huge deal. 10% of your profits, like that's huge. And so when we did this test.
So is her vision like to give back then?
We thought it was.
Okay.
And this is why I do the workshops. And I'm like, okay, that immediately looks like that's her big thing. We're going to give back. It's kind of like the Tom Shoes model where you buy one, give one. I was like, maybe she's the Tom Shoes of soap and body care. Maybe that's what she is. And we kind of started investigating that. And it was investigated more through our process. Realized, well, actually, she did something else that was even more impactful for her clients. Because her clients, they do care about that, but that's not the reason they buy. The reason they buy and keep buying, and this is good branding, why do people want what you have, is they would get these fantastic packages in the mail. I got one myself. And it was this, the unboxing experience was, you'd open it up. It looks like a regular box, and we're working on making sure the outside looks awesome too. But it was just a regular box. You open it up, and it's just like this gift set of all the stuff you order. It's all this nice, fancy, and there's a personalized note written for me, multiple paragraphs.
Is that over-delivering again?
Over-delivering.
What is it? Under-promising, over-delivering.
So you think you're buying soap.
Yeah.
You buy it, and it's like this sumptuous opening experience. You're like, wow. And then there's an extra item in everything that they give you. Hey, we saw you ordered this. A lot of people like this too. You should try this. So it's very personalized. And so what we realized is, okay, well, maybe that's what's going on. So we asked a few more questions, and we found out that actually, on top of the 10% giving back, they really just have this flag in the ground. They planted that I didn't even know about until we asked questions. That is customer service. And it's funny because the answers had come out. We did a survey for their clients because that's where it starts. Why do you buy Mama's Home products? Their company's name is Mama's Home. And he was like, oh, we buy because, it results. People love this. It's a natural soap company. Well, okay, that's normal. Natural soap companies, everyone would want to buy natural soap because of results. But the second one was customer service. That was a little confusing because I was like, why do people choosing customer service? It's not like they're an e-commerce company. Customer service isn't really a thing, really. And I realized, it's the unboxing experience. It's that little touch of writing that note. And then I was dug into this. They're like, oh, yeah, well, actually, I told them the story of Zappos. I'm getting a little crazy here. Pardon all the
I'm following, though.
You're following?
I'm following.
Okay.
I've had 2 espressos. I'm following.
You're all okay. I have a lot of things to cover. So you guys know about Zappos at all and their story? So Zappos.
No, tell me.
Zappos is an internet company. They still do. They sell shoes. Now they've been purchased by Amazon since then, but they're famous for planting their flag in the ground. If you look at for customer service, if you look at their website, you look at their product selection, they don't have the cheapest products. They don't have the best looking website. They got a normal looking website. They don't have an amazing looking logo. In fact, I'd say it's a little chintzy. It's a little like you tried too hard to shove this footprint into the Zappos. Zappos with an exclamation point. The exclamation point is like somebody's footprint. Like this doesn't really look premium quality. That's fine. You know why people buy from Zappos? They buy it and there's this like money back guarantee. And then when if they have any problems, they make buying from the shoes from the internet super, super, super easy. And there's these stories where people are like, I bought these shoes for my wedding. The wedding's off. And they're like, I'm so sorry. Please donate those shoes. Don't worry about returning them. And then they'll get flowers in the mail the next day. Because why? Zappos planted their flag in customer service. They empower their customer service reps to have a lot, they pay them well, and then they empower them to have a lot of authority and a budget to bless their customers, to love on their customers. So their customers are like, whoa.
So that's their brand then,
That is
right?
their brand,
okay.
is in customer service. You wouldn't know it necessarily by looking at it. There's probably some improvements that can be made, but that's the kind of branding I love helping people figure out. And so we did that to Mama's Home. We realized, wow, Mama's Home is like the Zappos of body care. They're not the Tom shoes where you buy one, give one. You buy a pair of shoes, give one. We thought that was kind of what we were going for. But their clients put on that survey, customer service on the survey, because they realized they were touching on it. They're like, well, I get this great package and all that. And so that's where we're now moving in that direction now for their brands. We're building it right now. We're trying to show how do we play up this fact that they're really a customer-centric body care company and kind of showing the Mama's Home heart through all of that.
And reflect that in their overall brand. Because
Absolutely.
It could be, let's say, another company that has an organic soap
Yeah.
product as well.
Yep.
Their brand stands uniquely different from theirs
Yes.
because that's their overall vibe.
Yep,
Right?
absolutely.
Okay. I think that makes sense to me.
And some of these things evolve over
They
a
do.
period of time. So you may think you're starting off with something, and then a year later, I think it sounds like almost you've experienced some of that things evolve, and I've
yeah.
experienced that in my own business.
And
that things
myself too. I've had how
evolve,
many intros now for this podcast?
Yep.
There's things evolve. So when do you think it's a good time to bring somebody in to help you with those 5 V's? Is it when you're
question.
just starting a business, or is it better to wait maybe a year or so you get a really better understanding of what it is that you're doing?
That is a really good question.
And
Thanks.
I'd like to know. I ditto.
Did I earn my living now? Did I earn my spot?
Wait,
here
can
at the table?
can I share with everyone? Will you Google?
Sure. Yes.
So that is a great question. That's
We'll share that later, maybe.
Okay. All right.
That's a great question because it's one I've been asking myself. So I've been doing branding marketing ever since really middle school, drawing logos with my buddies in middle school. Like we'd take our first name, last name, cut them in half, smush them together, and draw a logo for it. Like this is so cool.
So this is really a pathway that you were meant to be on, really.
Yeah, I loved it. I was like, this is so cool because I was always artistic as a kid, but I also loved the idea of like double meaning and investigating and like what does this mean? What is the secondary meaning to this? And so I loved that graphic design, which is my historical background, gave me an opportunity to kind of dig into not just the visuals, but how can we build some meaning into this visually? And so went to high school and college and went to college for graphic design. And so as I've been working in branding and marketing for a while, it wasn't until the last 2 years of working with a lot of businesses all of a sudden, because I'd been doing stuff on the side. I was doing this for my employers for 8 years, but it wasn't until I was working with businesses a lot more that I started asking me that question. And that's a great question of at what point do you bring someone in? Because I found myself working with clients who have just an idea. They don't really have a business. They have an idea. I cannot really help someone with an idea. At some point, you got to go and you got to
They need to
do it
figure
yourself.
out what it is that like the foundation needs to be built to some extent.
Yeah,
first.
they've got to do their own market research. And ultimately, a business isn't a personality. And you can have a brand personality and you can have a brand around a personality. Donald Trump is an example of a brand around a personality, and Brene Brown, and these have these individual. But a business is not a personality. It is actual numbers coming in, numbers going out. Has to be a certain way. So you got to figure what that is out before you work with someone like me. Now, if you bring in someone like me and you consult with me and say, hey, I've got these things, I really have this passion for this and this and this, I might give you some pointers, just like anyone who's been in business a while might be able to give you. And I think that's good and wise to do, bring people in and give perspective. Do you think there's a business here? But at the end of the day, a business is solving a problem for the marketplace, a problem the market has, some kind of market, be it big market, small market. And then when you figure what that is out, then you figure out how are we going to do this differently in a way that matters to our customer, not just differently, with like a clown face on and like, we're different. Well, yeah, you're different, but you're ridiculous.
Right.
What is different? So Zappos is we're going to sell shoes on the internet, but we're going to plant our flag in customer service. Mama's Home, we're going to sell soap on the internet. Thousands of people sell soap on the internet, but we're going to do it in a way that values each of our clients, over delivers that personal approach. And that's a great business.
And that's
model.
that loyalty and that buy-in
That's
eventually is what you want, right?
That's exactly right.
So if you're going to brand yourself, that's what you want is returning customers and loyalty from those customers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, that's branding. And that's ultimately what branding does is it builds loyalty into your business.
Gotcha.
A lot of businesses think branding is just the visuals, and they're right to an extent. It's making sure you're setting the right impression, you look professional, you're wearing the right clothes to the interview, so to speak. You're plenty of businesses walk around with terrible looking logos, setting a terrible impression, but people will never do business with them. But if, as long as you got a professional appearance, then you can go to step 2. How are you different and why do we matter to me? Why should I change my providers? I'm perfectly happy with my plumber over here. Why should I choose you, other plumber over here? Beyond just the price. And there's a way to do that using branding. And we have 100% double back money back guarantee. Aldi, for example.
Sure.
We'll give you your money back and then we'll also give you the product, or this is like a double money back. So there's different things you can do to give people
to reinforce that. Yeah.
Exactly what you have to offer to people and why they should keep coming back. And that's why people build loyalty is that. And it makes it, even if you're the most expensive option in town, the most expensive hairdresser, the most expensive.
There's value in that though, right?
Yeah, Whole Foods.
Right?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. You have to make sure you figure out how your value is based on your vision for your customer.
So it makes sense for somebody to or a company to work with you when they've already, to some extent, done the market research, kind of already know, like have a little bit of a vision and have like a baseline or foundation of where they might want the company or their company to go.
Absolutely. And then they can work with me. We got some packages for visuals and verbals, making sure the tagline is right, making sure the visuals look good and beyond looking good, look fantastic for their market. What's attractive to the market? Are they have a more fun style? Do they have a more serious style? Making sure that people can know what kind of business they're going to be doing with this kind of company. And that makes sense for that industry.
Like in layman's term, I feel like it's like an overall vibe from somebody.
Absolutely.
Another V.
It's a vibe.
Oh my gosh.
Shanks
6
V.
Vs.
So I feel like it's like an overall vibe because I will have to say I didn't have the pleasure of meeting you before I actually went on the Hippie Banker, the new website, and I absolutely loved it. Like I loved the way it looked, the way it was set up. It was easy to navigate. I loved it. And so for those of you who don't know, Justin did help with your website and some of the branding stuff. I like the H. Everything looks good. And that really did. I already knew Beth. She was already legit in my book. I was already, that V validated everything I needed. Okay. We're going to just do V's all day here.
Very good.
She validated everything I could ever want. And I'll say this again, you were one of the first people that helped me on this journey of just podcasting. And so, but I already had that buy-in, but to see that, it validated, it validated more so for me, like that level of professionalism. So I absolutely love that. Now, I want to go back to something. Sure. You mentioned earlier that today is a little bit different when it comes to branding and marketing because of social media. Yeah. And not only YouTube influencers, right? Like if we're talking about cosmetics, let's say, I mean, just some of the cosmetics brands have blown up, have become huge simply because of influencers. Yeah. How do you think branding and marketing has changed because of social media?
Well, all the crap is out, right? Like if somebody's a crappy company, people are going to know
the
they're
call out
crappy.
culture is happening. Yeah,
You can see Google reviews, 2.5 stars out of 5. How many reviews? 15. You can read the reviews. You couldn't do that back in the day. You can go to Facebook. You can see if they're recommended, not recommended.
Do you think reviews? Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you think reviews are more important than like logo and what the service is? Do you think that other customer reviews is actually more important?
Absolutely. Your brand is, because your brand is your reputation is one way I define it.
Okay.
So if your brand is your reputation, I mean, you got to set a good first impression. But if somebody doesn't even get to that first impression because they're just looking at reviews through a random third-party website, whether it's Google My Business when somebody Googles your company, or it's Yelp if you're a restaurant especially, or it's any of these other, especially healthcare providers, there's plenty of websites that rate doctors. You're not going to have a chance to set a good impression. I mean, if your review is just crappy or there's like questions there.
And social media has really fired that up.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Back in the day, you can get away with a lot of crap, look like the best thing in town, and people would have bad experiences. But other than word of mouth, which, funny enough, if you have a bad experience with a company, you're 20 times more likely to tell someone than if you have a good experience, which, kind of speaks to the importance.
I think that's true.
I mean, everyone wants a good, juicy, I can't believe that you should hear all about this thing that this company, she did my hair, but she like shaved off the half and then she had to make up. You want to tell stories like that versus, Joe, he did my plumbing. He was great. He put his little booties on, made sure he was clean in the house. And he asked me if I need anything else. Those stories do exist. People will tell those, but it's more likely it's a bad stories. And that's what reviews are.
And those probably have more of an effect on people and a lasting impression on people than negative ones.
Yeah. So hard to change a first impression. We all know that. We all know it's so hard. But yet businesses are walking around wearing the shabbiest clothing with the most terrible reviews online. And sometimes they're actually really good businesses, but they're so unaware of the things people are judging them by. And I think that's not right. That's one of the reasons I started my business, is to make sure businesses, if they have a good core, I don't want to work with businesses that have a bad core, but if they have a good core, it shows on the outside. And it often will through reviews, but sometimes they just don't have enough reviews. They're not asking for them. They're not saying, can you review us online and things like that, just because people need to be asked and prompted.
No, I do agree with all that. I just want to ask, as a devil's advocate
Absolutely.
question, there are, and I can't even think of one at the top of my head, but there are brands that are they stay authentically true to who they are, whether or not they're dressed well or whatever, because at the end of the day, their service, let's say, or their product rise above all. And I guess it goes back to customer service.
Yep.
But that authenticity, how do you define how somebody should look, or what their image should be? And what does that look like?
That's a great question. So I think when you said that, I was thinking of REI. REI has a really bad looking logo. It's a really wonky, it looks, it's...
Because I feel like some people appreciate more the authenticity part than I don't need it wrapped up in a really pretty bow. I don't care if you're wearing a suit and tie.
At the end of the day,
I just want to know, are you going to solve my problem? Or are you going to provide me with a good service? So I guess I just have to ask what you think about that. Yeah,
absolutely. You know that if somebody does a great job, that's all you care about. You only care about the result you're getting. Again, the market dictates the success of your product. They buy it and they're like, they're coming back, regardless of how it looks. The problem is a lot of businesses never get to the point where they're like, I could get more customers if I looked even, like if I had some kind of resonance with my clients and I had some kind of, or my customers, and through my visuals, and I was really able to fix some of these things up. It's kind of like a really good plumber wearing shabby clothing. I keep coming with a plumber example. I don't know why. But
hey, plumbers are valuable. All right?
They are valuable, right? Yes. So it's like having...
I don't care what they wear. They're helping me out.
So they're like answering the phone or whatever. Yeah. They're really helpful. They set good expectations. They come do a great job. Like, you're going to be like, you got to check out this plumber. But if they wear bad clothing, they show up to the door, what's that going to do for you? They're like shabbily dressed. They've got maybe a few days worth of gristle on their face. Like, what is it going to do to you? Am I sure? I don't know.
But what if he did a fantastic job, though?
And then you're not going to care. You're not going to care. You're going to keep coming back to them.
That's more than the value is more important to you then, because they brought you better value than the...
You overcame that objection of, I'm not sure about this person.
Okay.
But inherently, whether it's a website that's poorly designed or a logo that's just kind of wonky or product packaging that's just like, really... At the end of the day, if you can get to the core, and this is what we were talking about before, if we get to the core of what a business offers and you experience it and you're like, this is great, we all buy from businesses that are great and have a terrible outside wrapping, so to speak. Gotcha. My job is to make sure the inside matches the outside so people don't ever think, I'm not going to do business with them because they have maybe the wrong connotation. They're dressed shabbily. They've got a poor packaging. Mama's home. Rebranding because their packaging is okay. It could be so much better. So people will be like, wow, that looks really fancy, or that looks really cool. I want to try that out. So that it's not an objection on the way to somebody wanting purchase the product.
That reminds me
Gotcha.
of the very first time that I had a loan client, a business loan consulting client, and I had been branded as the Hippie Banker, and I was trying to figure out what am I going to wear to this very first meeting, because I had spent 6-7 months just doing coaching and dressing exactly and looking exactly however I looked on a daily basis. But I was thinking, okay, how should I look for this person, because I want to be authentic, but I also want them to take me seriously as a banker.
That's a hard balance to have, I think, right?
It is. So when I walked in, I was wearing a blue blouse, a pair of jeans, and I think maybe some booties or something. And I walked in and met her for the first time, and she said something to me like, "Well, you don't look much like a hippie," and it was like, shit.
You missed your opportunity. You want to be authentic.
Right. And it really was like, Beth, quit screwing around with this. Just wear what you wear. And the next time I went in, my signature tank top and linen pants and flip-flops. And she's like, there, now you look like a hippie.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was one of those reminders of like, it is really, really important to be authentic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that is hard, because you have to be authentic to who you are, but still, like you said, have that balance of, I want people to have a good first impression and understand, like, I myself to some extent is the brand.
Yeah.
So if I don't dress very well and I'm going into, let's say, working with a healthcare company and I'm going in dressed in like pajama pants or whatever, you probably aren't going to be taken seriously. But at the same time, so that's a hard place to navigate. I'm sorry, Justin.
No, and you're absolutely right. Like sometimes there's and this is the distinction I want to make between personal brands and company brands. So Beth has a really strong personal brand. She can live that out authentically.
Everyone knows you as a hippie banker.
Yeah.
By the
So
way.
Beth's heart is the hippie banker. That's her literal heart inside of her, and she can live that out in the way she dresses. Companies, however, have to strike this balance between, well, we want to meet. What does our client base expect? Healthcare company. What do they want from us, and how can we stand out? And so there's a way you can go too far. You can't be, for example, a funny healthcare company. It's just not acceptable. No one's going to go do business with the funny healthcare company. They want serious professional, somebody who knows what they're talking
Very
about.
True.
So you can't be even though it would be a way to
Because it's
stand
a serious.
out.
If my
It's very
family
serious.
has a serious medical condition,
Right.
I wouldn't want somebody to be funny about
You
it.
can't.
Yeah,
You can't.
okay.
So you got to
Double
find.
gunslinging with their jokes all over the place.
That's right. I couldn't.
Pass,
You
Yes.
wouldn't want a Shangler Waldinger anywhere near you during a healthcare
That's
crisis.
right. So at the end of the day, you're a business, and your job is to meet a need for your clients, and so you have to build it around what they want. At the same time, you have to also be authentic to what you are as a company. And a company is more complicated. It's not one or two people; it's a bunch of people, and you get to in that point dictate what your values are going to be. Well, we believe in putting, whether it's Zappos, putting the customer first, and really, what does that mean? Well, it means we answer their calls within 5 seconds. It means we, don't let them be on hold. It means we send them flowers when things go bad in their lives. There are outcomes of the things you stand for as a value as a company, and that's what companies can actually decide. Now, it doesn't mean the people in the company actually have that. It just means the company itself, that's a unique value that they're going to take on to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. So there's a difference between personal brands, which are important. You have to be absolutely authentic and dress the way that people, and people will find you and be attracted to you. And there's also corporate brands is what I call that. Companies need. So there's slightly
So there's
different.
some differences.
Oh yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah. You can't. Again, a healthcare company can't go and their employees can't dress like hippies if they want to be taken seriously.
Right.
But Beth can, because there are people that want that life coach, and I want somebody who's not too uptight. She's not going to give me the checklist of things I need to do. I want her to come at me with I want Beth, because she's got a more open mind, and she's laid back, and she's gonna hear my crap. I'm gonna spill it all in front of Beth, and she's not gonna judge me. I know I can get that from Beth. And oh, by the way, she's gonna help me with the finances, which is also a process. If anyone's been in business long enough, your finances are sort of like, don't want anyone to see my finances.
Yeah.
And how am I explain this $5,000 spend on this stupid thing I did last year? So you've got that comfit level that the hippie banker brings.
That non-judgmental, and I do feel that with you too, is non-judgmental. I mean, we swear a lot. I think that's how we communicate, to be honest, because we're really honest and authentic in that way. So I would much rather work with Beth, obviously, than maybe somebody like you described who is super professional, is always in suit and tie, or the way that's my vibe. That's just what I prefer.
And there will be people that prefer the suit and tie over Beth, and that's perfectly okay. You don't want the suit and tie hard driver people.
So
give me success
doesn't
now.
that come back though to the kind of customer you want. Like you should be as a business owner, an entrepreneur, you should be incredibly, or a brand, you should be incredibly specific to the type of people you want to attract. Is that true?
Absolutely. When you do branding,
like you can't just say young professionals, 21 to 45, like I say. It has to be specifically like, her name is Mary and she's 21 years old and she likes coffees, and like, right, it should be something like that.
That's a persona exercise I do that all my clients, because what that does is help you kind of figure out like a relationship. If Mary wants to be listening to this podcast, what is Mary like? What is she at in life? What is she struggling with in the home, at work? What does she want from this business? What can she get out of it? Because you are running a business at the end of the day. You're not going to do this for free. Maybe you will. I mean, it's a hobby.
I am doing it for free, by the way. It's a passion project.
Passion project. So, but if you ever turn it into business, it has to have some kind of revenue cycle. So and money's going to come in. What value are you going to have so people pay you so that you get value out of it? And at that point, Mary, that conversation with Mary is going to become really important. So what is that value we're giving to Mary, and why would she want to pay for it? Or podcasts would be, through advertising on the podcast and things like that.
Yeah, and I've said this before, but my podcast is something I just love doing. It's a passion project. It's not at all ever for revenue or money or anything. And if there is anything that generates from it, it's to give back. So there is a difference though. Like if your vision is you want to have a sales-based company where you're going to maybe get or accrue more customers and then retain the customer base that you have, that's going to look really differently from like maybe a podcast or whatever. So, so I want to switch gears a little bit. When I first met you, well, we sort of met. We met through Zoom. We had a really cool virtual meeting during lunchtime. And we spoke a lot about different concepts of what this conversation is going to look like, and you spoke a lot about fear. That's actually one of the concepts that me and Beth talked a lot about, is the concept of fear. Now, with fear, why is this so important to you, and why did you feel that this is something that has shaped you or has helped you, or has there been moments where fear really prevented you from doing something that you maybe should have been doing?
Absolutely.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, fear. Oh my gosh. And it's funny because Beth is now my neighbor at the office, and she's like, your tagline is literally, I help entrepreneurs with fear and finances. And I love that tagline, by the way, because as the more I become an entrepreneur and really build this thing, the more I'm realizing, wow, my life has not been one of courageous decision making, and I'm going towards this place that no one's gone before. It's more of like, I'm going to take the easier route because I'm afraid of this. I'm going to go take this job because I'm not going to do that hard decision because fear. But you don't realize it until you're an entrepreneur. And at least that's
does
my
fear
case.
correlate with the level of how high your pitch of your voice goes? I'm
really afraid to talk to you. You get constricted.
Okay, but yeah.
So absolutely. My wife, I call her she's a built-in life coach. Like this woman is fantastic for like opening up my heart, and like I've got a bunch of messy wires.
Shout out to your wife.
Shout out to my wife, Tia Vajko. If you need life coaching, that is like, I don't know. She doesn't know to be life coaching. She's thought about it. But she's like, oh, this wire goes here. Oh man, this wire goes here. And so I've gotten a lot of insight from her just living with her, because when you're married to someone, they see all the nasty parts of you, and I'm like, why aren't you doing that decision you said you were going to make the other day? Because I'm afraid. And so fear has been a really big part. And the moment that came to the fore, the biggest time that ever came, one of the biggest times that ever came to the fore in my brain of like, wow, I'm not making decisions because I'm afraid, was right before we launched that ad campaign. I've never spent so much money on advertising for my own business. It was funny because, all right, a little bit about me. I am a social animal. I like being around people. That's where my energy comes out. That's where I'm able to overcome fear, actually. I'm not really afraid right now because there's some fear always when you're meeting new people and talking about things that are really important to you. But I realized, like, if I'm in this setting, I'm okay. I'm like, I can talk about things. I can be vulnerable. I can lay things out, and it's fine. But when I'm by myself, my own thoughts get I get into my own head, and it just gets really hard. So the first time that I realized for the first time, wow, I've been running in circles like almost my whole life, really, was about 45 days ago. Austin, the videographer on this ad campaign, I'm the marketing guy, he's a videographer, and I said, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do this ad campaign. We're going to put this money into it. It's going to be 40 days long. We're going to give away this huge video marketing package. It came time for me to actually pull the trigger and start working. I was like, oh my gosh, all these subconscious thoughts I'd had for the last 2 years just came like, oh, nobody's going to want this. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to let Austin down. It's going to be a huge failure. All these negative self-thoughts.
It's like the inner dialogue. I have a lot of that negative inner dialogue. And I feel like the negative stuff that you tell yourself is like 50 times more impactful than the positive stuff. It's just, that's just how I feel. Like if I'm like, nobody's going to listen to my podcast and I'm not good enough, who cares about me? That really can be self-defeating. So how did you overcome that?
Well, first of all, it was just like, wow, I can't believe I had these voices in my head really influencing my whole life, I think. And so the first piece was I was suddenly aware. And the second thing was, oh, I got a buddy. We're partners now. I can't let him down. I'm doing this. So I walked through that fear curtain. And the very next day, I was like on cloud nine. I was like, I can't believe I did that. I'm doing this. We're doing this. It's going to work. It's going to work. It was incredible. But I had to walk through that fear curtain. And it's funny because all these years leading up to that, I heard about people, especially Beth. Beth and I talked, and I knew about her coaching entrepreneurs through fear. I didn't really have a hands-on experience of that. Why? Because I would always, I'd be like, I'm going to do this thing. No, I'm not going to do that thing. But I would never get to the point.
You avoided fear to some extent.
I avoided fear. Yeah. I'm a fear avoider. I'm a professional fear avoider. I'll have you know. Because my whole life I've done this. And so ever since that moment, and that was 45 days ago, maybe 2 months ago, I've suddenly realized, holy crap, my whole life, I look at this decision I made. Oh my gosh, that was a fear decision. I took the safe route. I can tell you, for example, when I was in college, I said, I'm never going to be my own business owner, even though I know that's where the potential is for income and freedom. I'm going to work for somebody else. Why? Because of fear. I want to take the traditional route. No way I'm going to go out on my own, And maybe it's a firstborn thing. I know people have often said the firstborn is often the most risk averse. And I am the firstborn. When you're firstborn, depending on your family situation, and we had a lot of situations in our lives that are just like you gotta just stay safe if possible. Because I had a lot of chaos in my life growing up, so maybe it was born from that. But it's just amazing looking back, just like wow, how much fear has impacted my decisions. And so I'm trying to be.
It's easier to stay safe and comfortable.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then you look back at my life, and I'm 33 years old today, and I'm looking like, oh my gosh, this other dude over here is 33. He owns a multi-million-dollar business. He's got a bunch of people working underneath him. What's different between me and him? Well, he made the jump a lot earlier than I did. He went through that fear curtain. And maybe it was personality-based, like he was raised in a home where it's like, go get it, you can do this. Or maybe it's personality. Some people, if you're familiar with the Enneagram or any kind of personality test, you know that there are people on the Enneagram or personalities that are more driven.
Beth and I actually just took that the other day. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've heard of it, but I just took that the other day, and Beth did too, and we shared our results. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, and I'm a 7, and so an Enneagram 7 runs away from pain and runs towards fun. So my whole life has been, I'm going to squeeze out of pain. If there's some pressure on me, I'm just squeeze out underneath it. I'm going to go for the fun stuff because I ain't got time for that. I don't want that. And so recognizing that and knowing myself has been instrumental in me helping me make the hard decisions I need to make in my business.
Well, you really challenged yourself then to overcome what that anxiety and fear is 45 days ago.
60 days. And again, it didn't come on my own. Yeah. No way. I would have been running around in circles. I don't know what to do. Who's my ideal? I'm still trying to figure out who's my ideal customer in my business. I say entrepreneurs, but that's got to narrow down over time if I really want to have some success. It was really when Austin and I buddied up and we were going to do this marketing campaign. It's like, I owe this to Austin. I'm accountable to him. And so that was just one piece to realize for myself. I need accountability in my business more than just...
And power in numbers, really, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I thrive. And so I'm just recognizing these things from my personality and how as a business owner, I really need to set up my business in a way that the personality matches the way the business works. Otherwise, it's never going to work.
Do you see that coming through in your clients that you're working with? Do you see them butting up against that fear? And now
different fears.
Now can you use your experience to help them bust through too?
Yeah, it's amazing, Beth. I'm sure you've got so much insight into this, like how fear influences. Looking back on all my clients, I talk with clients all the time. They're just like, they don't want to do that because they're just like fearful of and ultimately investing, marketing. I don't want to invest in my own business.
Well, money is a huge source of safety and security. So people want to hold on to that as much as possible because it does make them feel safe.
Absolutely. Right. And so there's there's the precious few, similar to you. I was like, man, if I only had more Beth clients. Our first meeting, I closed a sale with Beth. That has never happened to me in my life. I was like, okay, this woman's got something going on in her life that she's so aware of her fear. And she's like, and you said, I think you're an email to me like, I'm going to do this. I'm afraid, but I'm going to do this. I was just like, oh my gosh, how many people would be so far ahead in life? And they said, I'm afraid, but I'm going to do this, including myself. And so that was really left an impact on me. I was like, how do I find more Beths? Maybe I want to work with life coaches who are aware of their fear. I don't know. So that's one of my potential target audiences. But yeah, it is incredible how, I work with all sorts of folks, doctors, other kinds of business owners. And the ones that are the more mature about this are the ones who have already been there. And they've done something, and they're trying to do something again. And they're like, I ain't got time to let fear hold me back. I got to build this business. I got to make this work because.
But you need to get to that point like before you can get to that point, you have to take that leap first, you know, and I think for me, even if you're fearful and anxious about something and you question yourself, like, what if I'm not good enough? What if nobody listens? What if I invest all this money, which is comfort and safety, and then I get nothing from it and I just lose it? I personally feel like, so what? Like, and I think that is the difference. You have to do that first before you can even get to the place where you're a little bit more comfortable with trying risks and doing something.
Well,
Otherwise,
and what you're talking about is the belief that everything is going to be okay, that you're resilient, and whatever it is you face, if it doesn't turn out the way exactly that you planned, that you're resilient to say, okay, that didn't work. Yeah. I'll be okay. I can do something different.
it's like a risk factor too. Yeah. But yeah.
Absolutely. So it's just absolutely stunning to me, just being aware of it, first of all, and now seeing it everywhere. So this is new to me. I'm like just feel like it just crawled out of the womb. It's just like, what is this world? Fear everywhere.
I was just born yesterday.
Yeah, it feels like I'm a new business owner in that sense. But it's super like, I'm like, wow, this is so cool to now be aware of this. I'm just excited to see the decisions I make where I feel the fear and I do it anyway. And I can tell you in the last 60 days, I've made more progress in my business than I did the previous 18 months because I've been aware of that. Yep. And not letting fear hold me back, because I do not want to be here 10 years from now. Yeah, spinning my wheels and be like, oh, if only, I want to make the safe decisions. There are no safe decisions if you want to run a successful business. They're
and I actually
risks.
really liked what you said in one of the presentations for Women in Cups. You said, this is, I've done the 1.0 version of me. This might be the 1.5, maybe 2.0, but I know eventually there's going to be 3.0. And that's what it should be. You're constantly refining yourself. And, that's exactly why I took a break, was I wanted to refigure out, like, what is it that I want to do? And Beth, you helped me a lot with that. What is it that I want to do and where do I want to go? And I think that that's normal and that's okay to have that. It's a journey. It's not the end result, because the end result should always be ever changing, regardless, if you want growth, that is. So before we go, I want to ask you, from your perspective, what is it that a business or an entrepreneur or a company that maybe is already up and running, what is it that is about them that it'll take for them to be successful in branding and marketing themselves? Yeah. With or without your help?
With or without my help. I think the first part is understanding your business. If you ever read the book Michael Gerber, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, the E stands for entrepreneur. I know it's confusing because it's like E-Myth, like email, electronic. The entrepreneur myth. The entrepreneur myth is the one that if I can do the job, I can run a business. That is a myth, because if you can do the job, you're just working. In fact, the business owns you if you just end up doing the job. So the difference between an entrepreneur, a real business owner, and maybe what do you call a freelancer, somebody who just does the work, or is somebody who recognizes I'm building an asset here. I'm no longer in the business of doing the work.
Is that like not working for your company, but working on your company?
We're not working in your company, working on your company.
On your company, gotcha.
And that transition is super painful. I'm in the middle of it right now. It's a ton of transition, because you fill a lot of seats when you do in your company. You do the customer service, you do the sales, you do the, I'm going to go do this job, the actual work itself, the hours, billable hours. And so I think the biggest thing I want companies to understand, and especially if in the early stage, is you are building an asset. If you're not building an asset, your business owns you, and you're not any freer than if you work for somebody else. You might as well work for somebody else than building that, because an asset will work for you long term. And that's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build an asset. Now, that's not bad, because it means that I'm going to build something that outlasts me, and it'll have more impact in the world. If Jeff Bezos said, well, I'm going to go sell books on the internet, he'd still be selling books, and he's doing them, but he built an asset that now is massive, providing a ton of value, especially COVID-19. People can be like, this is my new Walmart. I'm going to go buy, subscribe and save, whatever. And people's lives are impacted forever now because of Amazon, because he built an asset. So I'm going to go build an asset that outlives me, hopefully, that can impact the world, also can provide income for my family, and give me a plan.
Essentially a legacy you want to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it can help me build something, and maybe I can build something else, because I've noticed that in myself recently, like, hey, I'm going to build this. But you know what? I want to build something else too someday. Build something else. So
why not?
Why not? Because there are a bunch of needs that need to be filled, and businesses can fill those needs in the right way possible. Not just nonprofits meet needs, businesses every day meet needs in the best way possible. So if somebody, wants to understand one shift, this isn't even a branding and marketing thing. It's shift from thinking I need to do everything to I need to build an asset, because it will both bless you and bless the world at the same time, more long term. So, and then if you figure that out, then you need a really good idea of how to do branding and marketing, because your company is no longer based around your personality, which is the brand. Your company now has to figure out, what are we all about now that I'm not the business? And so that's where brand becomes very important. Well, what are we going to stand for? What values do you have as a person that you built into your company? Maybe they're there, maybe they're not there yet, that you need to figure out that'll help you grow and also last and provide value and build that loyalty. And we talked about.
I love that. Well, Justin Vajko, everybody. I was just talking about Jeff Bezos. Justin Bezos, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. That's amazing. I've learned a lot actually through you. I can feel the energy of like how much you care about marketing and branding. And I didn't know any of this until I met you guys. So this is amazing. But thank you so much, Beth, for also being here.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Everyone at home, I will link everything below to make sure that you are in the know what's going on with Beth, the Hippie Banker, as well as Justin Vajko and Dialog Design Company. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Let's go.